Hello everybody. Last video we talked about the economy, and today I want to talk about what's impeding our economy. Well, there's something called headwinds, and let's talk a little bit about headwinds. So what are some of the headwinds? Well, there's the world economy. And certainly we understand that the world economy affects our economy. We are living in a global world, and the world is really flat, so how the world does affects us. One of the other things that affects us is the European economy. Since Europe is one of our major trading partners, if they're kind of in trouble, that affects us. But there's several other factors, and let me just write down a couple of them. One is our energy policy. That's something that affects our economy. Second is capital formation. We understand that it takes capital to move our economy forward, and if there's no capital being generated, it's difficult for us to do that. And some of the other things are, for example, is our education system. If we don't have an educated workforce, it's very difficult for us to move our economy forward in a technical world. And one of the other major headwinds is regulations. Now, some of these things are basically beyond our control. Is that we have very little levers to pull on the European situation, and we don't have a big lever to move the world economy. But some of the things are pretty much totally in our control, and those are energy, capital formation, our education system, and our regulatory system. So let's focus on energy. That's totally in our control. Now, the good news is the Lord blessed us with preponderance of energy. We have lots of energy in our country. What the Lord left for us to figure out is how to produce or extract that energy, and that's a political football. But let's start with some facts. One is our energy consumption today is 18 million barrels of oil per day. And of those 18 million barrels that we consume, we have to buy about 50% of that. Or we got to buy 9 million thousand barrels of oil per day. The world price hovers around $100 per barrel. And if we got to go buy 9 million barrels of oil a day, that costs us $900 billion a day. And if we annualize that times 360 over a year, that's $3.2 trillion per day. That's a lot of money. And by the way, if you think that the oil companies earn about 50%, about 5% on sales, in other words, their profits, or 5% of their sales, then we are we're sending about $3 trillion per year to the bad guys. That's a lot of money. So why don't we produce this domestic energy ourselves? And there's lots of folks saying we can now do that. We have technological means to do that. We just lack the desire. But let's see what happens if somehow or another we can wave that magic wand and produce that energy ourselves. Here's what it would do. Let's assume that we could now pump this $3 trillion back into our economy. In other words, $3 trillion would go into payroll, buying things, producing things that the rest of in jobs that the U.S. economy could do. Let's see what it does to taxes. Let's assume that our tax code extracted only 15% of that $3 trillion. So if we had $3 trillion and we got 15% out of that, that would add $450 billion to our tax code. What would that do to our deficit? That's equivalent to about half of our deficit. So we could, if we could somehow or another produce our own energy, that's what it would do for us. Now, our liberal friends want to move some of this energy, some of these 900 million barrels of oil into green energy. And that is a great, fantastic idea. The problem is that under today's terms, it's economically impossible. We just don't have enough land to make synthetic energy. We just can't produce solar panels cheap enough to warrant under any means that we move to that. So although green energy is something that is coming and one day will be very economic, today it's not. And we don't think it will be for the next decade or two. So let's focus on producing our domestic energy. Now, our liberal friends are worried about the environment, and we all are worried about our environment. And when we move to 100% domestic production, us conservatives are not at all saying we abandon the environment, but as my father used to say, moderation in all things. And you know, today we kill about, I think, 40,000 folks on the highway. We could by fiat reduce that close to zero. We could write a rule saying that nobody will drive more than 10 miles an hour. And at 10 miles an hour, it's very unlikely we'll create very many deaths on the highway. The problem is all rules have unintended consequences. If you did that, we couldn't move our crops to market. That would create wide starvation and may and actually would kill more people than if we kept our present mileage at some reasonable level. And there always is a balance. And our liberal friends like to use the word fair and balanced, but I think they forget about balance. Let me also say something about environment. 2 years ago, BP had the most egregious spill of oil, domestic, I think, or otherwise, anywhere in the world. That created tons of havoc. But only 2 years out, guess what? Our fish population is back. Our friends that own camps in Grand Isle says the fishing is better it's been this year in a long time. So although oil spills and accidents will happen and will happen in the future, I think we're better prepared as time goes on to produce energy more responsible and avoid accidents in the past. But one thing we know is that we will never be 100% accident free. We will always spill hydrocarbons in our environment. But our ability to remediate that, our ability to remediate that is improving and our rules, and as we learn from that, we will and can produce our energy in environmental and safe ways. See you in the next video.